Rich is here. His devices are not connected. Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of the Yes California Calexit Congress. Regardless of what organization you're with, how initiated you are, how educated, how informed you are, whether you've been with us for a while or just recently got here, this is a group for anybody interested in Calexit. Come as you are. Be who you are. Anybody who's interested in the idea that maybe California could do better off as an independent nation. You don't even have to believe that a separate California is a good idea. You just have to believe that it's okay to have conversations like these. In a democracy, it's okay for people to discuss options and facts and to prepare for the future. And rational people, when they're on a boat and the boat starts to sink, don't wait till the water's up around their knees to start saying, should we build a life raft? Oh, no, that's a stupid idea to even build a life raft. Well, the water is up to our knees. Don't even think about talking about building a life raft. That's about how smart I view people who say you can't even have a conversation about Calexit. When you look at the US dollar, it's the weakest that it's been since World War II. When you look at the US middle class, they have had the most wealth sucked out of them to the rich after the recessions of 2008 and then the COVID recession. In any time since the 1930s, the trust in the federal government amongst all age groups, amongst the Supreme Court, presidency, and Congress is the lowest it's been in 40 years. If you talk to the youth of America, the highest percent of disillusion in America, American government, American values, and capitalism itself, including things like free speech. The youth just don't really seem to believe in it. When you add that all up, it looks like a ship sinking. Now, we can argue about if it's sinking or not, but that's why I brought up the motif. If you start to notice the ship sinking even a little bit, is it a stupid idea to think about building a life raft or a really smart, rational idea? That's the whole point. Hey, I don't agree that Calexit's the final answer. Okay. Can we have a conversation? No. Are we a democracy? Yes. That doesn't make sense. Are you a smart person who likes to think ahead? Yes. Can we have this conversation? No. That doesn't make sense. So, if you believe in democracy, if you believe in rational, this is the thing to do. End of story. That's the whole point of that. This is a rational conversation that we can have now, that we should have now, especially given all those consequences. And the other one I would add in is that the number of alliances America has. So the allies that America has built up since World War II are the least attached and most doubtful of America's strength and willingness to be there at any time since World War II. So if you look at Japan, Canada, Australia, Germany, France, they've never really questioned the durability of the American alliance at any time since 1945, and they've been doing so for the first time in 70 years over the last 5 years. So these are all hard facts. This is an opinion. These are hard facts. The dollar is the worst it's been. The debt's the worst it's been. Support for the government amongst all ages is the worst it's been. Belief in America amongst the youth is the worst that it's been. Wealth creation for the middle class is the worst that it's been. Support from alliances for America is the worst that it's been. So I'm not making that up. Those are all hard facts. This is the USA today. I'm just saying, when you look at those facts, how is it not reasonable to have a discussion about creating a life raft? I mean, that's what we're talking about. Is can we have a discussion about creating a life raft? A, you can't believe in democracy and say no. B, you cannot call yourself a rational person. Be aware of the state of the USA today compared to how it's been historically, and think this isn't a good idea. So I wanted to point that out. This is the rational, democracy-loving group of people. We love democracy and we love rational thought, and that's why we're talking about Calexit. In fact, let me write that down. We love democracy and we love rational thought. You can't think it's a bad idea to have this conversation given all the facts about how the USA is falling. And I don't say that to be mean. I gave you the hard facts. The dollar's weaker than it's been. The debt's higher than it's been. Support and faith in government is the lowest that it's been, according to multiple polls. The youth are the most disillusioned they've ever been, according to multiple polls. The last time America was that militarily embarrassed.
Very lucky right now. We gotta move a little bit to get better reception. I'm not sure if you have it right now. I'll be right back. I'm very sorry.
We can hear you. What were you saying, Anthony? Anthony?
I think he was saying that he's driving right now and might lose reception and is unsure of whether or not he's going to get reception in time to come back.
Okay, score. Yeah. Don't worry, Anthony. We'll keep adding you in.
Yeah, I had to move to a spot with better reception.
Hey, we're just glad you're here, and we wanted to prove to everybody, you know, Anthony was never part of the movement. He hadn't been working with us. He had just kind of thought about this idea in the back of his head, like we've said 15 million Californians do. And then he saw this and he goes, that's kind of interesting. So I really like you, Anthony, because I'm not trying to put pressure on you, but you are the poster child. We predicted people like you exist out there. And then you came forward. We said there's millions of people out there who are into this idea, who we've never met, who've never been to a meeting, and go, that kind of is interesting. And you came forward and literally kind of proved everything we hypothesized. So big fans. And that's the thing. If you see Anthony, you could be Anthony. You don't have to be part of the movement. You don't have to think Calexit's the best idea. You don't even have to Yes, California. You just have to think that as a Californian, it's not a bad idea that we should have this talk, especially if you're concerned about the future of your kids and your family and yourself. I mean, that's the big idea. Are you concerned about your future, your safety, your children, your family members, your investments, your security? If you
are, do you add? This goes to a federal level, but I mean, I just have to ask, how did the releasing of the Twitter files make you feel, honestly? I mean, I'm just curious because it affects Californians, and everyone's got to draw a line somewhere, I think. And it was, I guess, somewhere deep down, it's like you could kind of expect things like this to happen, but once it's just kind of right there in front of you. It's like, damn, it's a little bit of a kick to the balls, to just what we were supposed to be accomplishing as Americans in general.
That's just, I think it's a perfect sign of the times. So I was literally just talking to you about how the American people have the lowest faith they have in all three branches of government: the executive, the judiciary, and the Congress. And I was just talking to you about how the youth have the least faith they have in American values of any time past. And now what comes out? The Democratic Party was directly working with Twitter to remove opposition voices while going on television and telling everybody that that was a lie and nothing like that was happening. That is literally the same shit that happened in East Germany and the Soviet Union. Literally, whether you agree with Joe Biden doing that or not, oh, this is woke and that's hate speech, literally the same thing as the Stasi, okay, the thought police in Japan in World War II, the Chinese re-education camps, and the Soviet Union thinking. I mean, this is how they ran things, period, end of story. You can say, oh, it's great because Trump's bad and we don't want white supremacy. Okay. But you are now signing on to the way governments ran things in communist China, East Germany, and the Soviet Union. That's literally what they did. The government told the media what you can and can't print, and then
and
acted like
still do. Look at Hong Kong. Our brothers and sisters in Hong Kong over there have been standing for their legal right that is on paper guaranteed by China and the UK, standing up for their right to be their own people, and China just keeps on destroying while destroying the people physically, they're destroying everything they can find on the messaging, online, physical literature, you name it. They're going into places where small groups of people who are pro Hong Kong independence go to meet and discuss things, and they go and like shut the place down because it has hosted these people who are actively talking about their right to freedom. It still goes on to this day. And like, you know, if you don't like Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un, then you shouldn't be happy about what the DNC has done. And I don't like Trump, but I also don't like Biden, because they both, it's not just the DNC, they all do this. We will never be able to outdo them with undoing what we're trying for. The only thing we can do is continue to peacefully and legally pursue our right to self-determination as a people.
Yeah, because it's not going to get better. They're going to keep doing it. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans think this is okay. So, you know, not
oh yeah, right. That
about this.
Yeah, there are people on both sides who say the other team is the enemy of democracy and America and needs to be removed, needs to be made criminal, right? Which goes into the whole Civil War 2.0 coming soon to a theater, and not like movie theater, but, you know, a theater of war near you.
And please keep commenting. Please, I'm going to make a post. Please post your comments. We will share them. Anthony, what are you thinking right now about the state of America, where we're going? How do you view the release of Twitter showing that it was true this whole time? Look, I'm a liberal, I'm a progressive. But they said they were not moderating conservative voices, and turns out it was completely correct. They were outright moderating conservative voices and controlling the conversation in a democracy. And what does it say to you that not only did they do that, but that many people in America will say, good, great, glad they got those voices off there, glad they controlled the conversation, glad we didn't let those people speak.
I mean,
how do you have an America with people who think that way?
I think at the very least, it's good to have people like us coming from where we're coming from, and they're not going to like it, but at the same time, there's enough of us to where we can fight being completely suppressed. You know, I mean, I think you could watch the riots going on in China and you realize, you know, we haven't gotten to that point in America, but they're really knocking on that door. And I don't think anyone wants to see what a bunch of pissed off Americans can really do if they put their mind to it. And I think that alone can change a certain agenda of a government. But what I worry about and what scares me is that you'd hear conspiracy theorists 10 years ago and be like, man, you guys are idiots. And now you're at this place where you're like, okay, not only did they have a lot of points that turned out to be true, then you start to wonder how much is true. And that is scary, you know? But I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't like to even follow the whole charade of the show that goes on with politics and with, you know, corrupt officials. But to think as Americans, that it's gotten to such a place where it's like, I feel like Biden literally will look in any other direction but at the middle and lower class that hold this society together. It's like he could have given something back, because really it's all of our work collectively and none of it goes back to us. And it's just so like, man, something about that hurts. And then to realize that what he was funding in Ukraine was going back to them in a corrupt scheme. It's just, man, dude, it's really just hurtful. It's really insulting. And then it really makes you think, like we could have had a utopia if we put all this money back into ourselves, back into this country. Who knows how nice it could have been and how much less stressful. But how we act and how we are as a state of what we see, and it really, man, thinking about that somewhere deep down, just, it's painful, it's hurtful. And, as far as like Trump and Biden, all I can say is that, you're kind of right in the sense that maybe you're not going to get exactly what you want, but I think Trump would probably be better for business. I mean, I can't see how you could ever look at what's going on with Biden right now and be like, well, he can stay a president, even though I don't think it was necessarily as much Biden's fault. Is like, I think Hunter Biden like just sold out this country, man. I mean, and I don't know how much Joe plays into it, because if you really see him, he doesn't seem all there mentally. I'll give him that much credit. To be like, maybe he was corrupt by default of being kind of dumb, but I can't not say that Hunter Biden doesn't deserve kind of, I mean, literally, if it was any of us, I can't even tell you the amount of jail time we'd be doing right now. So, I mean, I'll just end with that. That's where I'm sitting, and I'm not sure how to feel about it yet. I'm still processing it as it comes on.
Well said. Well said. I can say that the thing that I see in your talk is disillusion. You seem shocked and disillusioned, and you're like, oh my God, this happens in America. And that's exactly where we were a couple of years ago. This is what happens here.
Wow.
This is this place. I literally cried when they passed the Patriot Act. And everybody looked at me weird and goes, why are you crying? It's the passing the Patriot Act. Because they just destroyed 3 of the Bill of Rights and nobody cared. So I was like, that
makes me think of Star Wars when the Senate gets dissolved and what's her name? Padme says the line of so this is how democracy dies to thunderous applause.
Right.
And like, look at World War I into World War II Germany, much the same thing. Like they had a parliament, they had a democratic structure, and then it was dissolved and a dictator made himself, equipped with unlimited power and all that, it's very dark side kind of stuff. And like, if you hear what we say, we never say anything about hating America or not liking American values. In fact, it's the opposite. We value these democratic values so highly that we can't see what's going on and turn a blind eye.
Right.
If you really are like not American, but you're really in line with the pursuit of freedom and, these values that the whole thing was supposed to be built on, then you kind of have to be able to see that the America that's existing now to this day, ever since the Patriot Act, it is not the same. It is not the same set of values, and it is highly detrimental to our society. And if you care about this society and the people in it and these values, then, sure, there are other options, a lot of them not reasonable, a lot of them very insane, like, the people who think it's okay to take up arms against the government. I mean, it's just never a smart move. Um, but the only real sane and reasonable option that is left on the table when you look at it all, as far as being able to still have these values and live in a safe and productive society, the only real option is to peacefully, legally separate and just go our own way.
Yeah, it's coming apart is the big idea. Seems to just be coming apart. So that's, yeah, if you're talking about the Twitter thing, I think the takeaway is that it was proven to be true. We were told that nothing like that was happening. That doesn't happen in America. That's ridiculous to say that government officials would be controlling thoughts. That's insane. We don't do that kind of stuff. Right? That was the attitude, was these crazy Republicans and conservatives are saying this is going on. That doesn't happen here. Turns out 100% true. So America is the kind of country where these things go happen, even though people don't believe that. So I would say that episode itself proves that people have a disconnected from reality understanding of their own country. They think this is the kind of country where that would never happen. It turns out this is the kind of country where that definitely happens. And the fact that we were not willing to suspect that our country might delve to those depths is the reason that it allowed to happen. I mean, conservatives were talking for a year about how it's an unfair debate space. No, you guys are idiots. There's nothing there. Be quiet. Nothing to see at all. Here's half the country complaining about their rights and democracy being removed. You're crazy. Nothing going on. How do you have a stable society when you tell one half of them, we're going to censor your speech and you're crazy if you complain about it? Look, I'm not a Republican. I think they're racist. Now, I'm not really big on that side. I think they toyed with racism. But when we're looking at the stability of a democracy and half the population tells the other half of that same country, no, we don't censor your speech and you're crazy for even thinking that. And then it turns out, yeah, we did censor your speech and gaslit you. And one half did that to the other half. How is that a stable country going forward? That's an open question to anybody. How's that stable? One half just gaslit the other half, removed their ability to participate, and said they're crazy, lied to them, and then the whole thing comes out. How are conservatives going to handle that? That's cool. We understand you guys made a mistake. Or is this only going to feed the idea that conservatives have that Democrats are out to destroy them and not let them play in democracy at all, and will rig the entire law and legal system to get them, which is what they already think with Trump. So I think Trump's a bad person, but they already had this idea with the Trump investigations, and now this comes out. And it basically just backs up all the worst theories conservatives had. How do you have national unity after that? That's a question for everybody. Somebody please explain to me how these two halves of America come back together after this.
I think the government wouldn't hesitate to create a common enemy, but an actual something that could actually unite people in some kind of thought or idea. You would need that kind of president to be the exact president that they needed to be. And I know that sounds stupid, but I don't know. I'm looking into like the soul of this guy. I'm looking into just a generalized soul, and I think that's probably what they're going after. And that's the weirdest thing, is that it's supposed to be a centralized government. Wasn't that the agenda? And what the hell does that mean for any of us or for freedom in general? And I don't necessarily need to be afraid of it, that's what they're going for. Maybe there was a good reason, but to this point, it scared the hell out of me. It scared me that just you wouldn't have a natural sense of things anymore. And like, I just think about, it almost gets to that cloud atlas type of level of slavery, you know, and just so deeply put to be a cog in that system that it's like, what are we even in anymore? Am I literally going to get chipped with an AI so I'm actually a robot? Like, is that the agenda? And when I get to this point, you know, that's why I have questions, because it's just, what were you guys really trying to do? Like, what are we getting after here? And how much, like, do you want my entire essence to be that cog? Has it gone that far, you know? And why, you know, well, where does anyone draw that line? And that's, you know, to me, what's kind of scary, and just a little bit of where the repulsion comes from. It's just like, damn, dude, we're heading into almost, you know, the level, it's almost to be a singularity, you know, like something along those lines.
So do you, I mean, you're coming from the outside. You haven't been part of the movement. You're coming from the outside. You're a regular Californian. From the little bit you've seen of us, the conversations we have, the facts that we talk about, does this seem like an irrational group of people, or like a group of people who might be aware of facts that most of the public just isn't aware of?
It's definitely just, I mean, I think that you guys are talking about things that you care about. I mean, and it's definitely rational. There's something that's probably of big concern to a lot of people. They just haven't found the right place for it, or they haven't, you know, because with a lot of this, it's just kind of like, you can't really go to maybe you could go to a town hall meeting, I don't know, but it just doesn't seem like something that's just, you know, is centerpiece as it should be, or like it's as casual as it should be. But really, there's nothing wrong with citizens that have concerns about what's going on, especially when you find out like that the agenda wasn't to help us. You know, that's even more like, okay, well, what the hell? Like, what did we do that kind of got us to this place of like, it almost feels like the government just kind of like they hate middle and lower class Americans, you know? And it's
Right?
like, and like just trying to draw all the power from us, and, you know, just beat us down. It's like, oh, wait, you know, it just, at the very least, it begs some questions that are worth questioning. But I mean, I still feel, you know, like with like California seceding, I mean, like it's still, you know, a thought that kind of like it just chimes in my head. But I don't know. I think most of the information that I look at comes from a federal level. They put it on this big scale of, you know, just, it's kind of like, what, no matter what media outlet you want, whether what side they're taking, it's always about the same like the same kind of bits and pieces that we're arguing over, you know. And I'm like, why are these the people? Like, there's like hundreds of millions of Americans, and when I turn on YouTube or something, I'll see the same 10 like
Right?
100 different times, and it's like, okay,
Right?
well, like, where's our sense of like community or unity? Like, I don't even know the people that I'm like right next to, and it's like, what, you didn't have an opinion about all this? Like, this is the shit you have to watch. This is the shit they feed you, and it's not like it's any good news. I mean, so I don't know. At the
I
end of the
think
day,
you
I
do
know.
know. And then that's the reaction that we got out of you. I know you're a little bit frustrated, but that, I'm sorry, that's what I wanted to get on camera, because I needed people to see that regular folks are going, that's not right. That's not right. That's a little creepy. What? Hold on. They did the what? Hold on. They did what? I thought they didn't do. They did. They actually did that. I thought they didn't do that. Wow, this doesn't sound like the America I knew. If I tell people that, that's one thing. If they literally see you show that as a real person with real human emotions like you did now, people get it. You know, you don't know me. I didn't pay you money. This is how you actually feel, Anthony. And, you know, the camera captures that. And we just want other people to go, if you're feeling a little bit, that doesn't seem right, like Anthony, maybe it's okay to have a discussion. Maybe if you're asking questions, it's okay to talk. Maybe if you're feeling uneasy, it's okay to I don't know, share facts with others. I used to think that's what they called democracy, the original American values. So let me show you guys this, if I can. 1 second. Whoops. And 1 second here. Okay, so let me cover this. So the first thing is I want to show where we are at now so we can do some election coverage. So I wanted to get Jason's opinion on this, and I wanted to make sure that we covered this a little bit. We're going to be doing a lot of this. I've been talking with Jason. We're going to be doing a lot of this, but let me show you this so far. So if we look at states that have been banned from California being able to travel to. So California has this travel ban where we don't allow state-funded travel, even for sports or anything government to government, to certain states that discriminate against California values. That list of states subject to AB 1887's travel prohibition is 23 states. There they are. Now let's take a look at Republican trifectas. Republican trifecta, or a state government trifecta, is a term to describe a single party government when one party holds the governorship and majorities in both chambers of the legislature. So one party basically runs that entire state. There's no balance. It's one party says, this is what we're doing. Everybody goes along. So if we look at state government trifectas, as of December 4th, 2022, after midterms, there are 23 Republican trifectas. And here's a map of them. So I took this map of Republican trifectas, 23 states where Republicans totally own the state government and could say, hey, we want to vote California out, and there'd be no liberals to push back. 23 states that California has said, we don't like you and are disgusted with your values and don't want to have anything to do with you. So what happens when we add all of that together? Let's take a look. Here it is. So it's not a perfect match, but if you look at that, all of those red states are Republican trifectas. Yeah, it looks like over half of America, right? And those purple states are not Republican trifectas. They're divided governments. It means that there's a lot of Republicans in control, but not total control, and who have been banned by California for traveling because of their conservative values. So red equals states where Republicans run everything. Purple equals states where Republicans have about 50% control, but the entire state has been banned and slammed by California. I think one thing you may notice is that those purple states that aren't Republican trifectas, but do have travel bans, they're literally right next to all the red states that are Republican trifectas and have travel bans. So when we look at Louisiana and South Carolina and Tennessee, and I think that's Nebraska, they're all surrounded by red, right? The only red place that's not surrounded by red is way up there in the top right corner, New Hampshire. So New Hampshire is the only place where they went red and they're not surrounded by red. Now, the black dashed line is a Republican trifecta with no travel ban. There are only 3 states with that black dash line compared to 23 states that are red. which means 87%, 87% of all Republican trifecta states, California has said, grow screw yourself, and we think your values are disgusting. 87%.
Is that Wyoming, Nebraska, and Missouri? Missouri?
Let's find out.
So
I know Nebraska because it's shaped like a cannon, and I lived there at one point in time. But the other two, I'm
Jason
pretty
was
sure
right.
Wyoming, Missouri. Okay.
It's these three. So the orange is travel ban.
Lots of college sports that are very popular, especially with people who like to bet. I wonder if, maybe that might have something to do with it. Why they could effectively be, put on the same list and banned, but for some reason they're not.
I was curious what the travel ban entails exactly.
Well, let's take a look. Great question. That's why we do this. Let's go directly to the source, because we're very big on not just telling people what the information is, but going, here's where we got it, and here's the source. So this is the Rob Bonta, Attorney General, State of California. That's the Office of the Attorney General, oag.ca.gov. So that's official California government website. That's the official seal of the Attorney General. The bill is called Assembly Bill 1887. One second here. Okay, here we go. 1887, the California legislature determined that California must take action to avoid supporting or financing discrimination against lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. To that end, AB 1887 prohibits the state agency, department, board, or commission from requiring any state employees, officers, or members to travel to a state that, after June 26, 2015, has enacted a law that, one, has the effect of avoiding or repealing existing state or local protections against discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Two, authorizes or requires discrimination against same-sex couples or their families on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Or three, creates an exemption to anti-discrimination laws in order to permit discrimination against same-sex couples or their families, or on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. In addition, the law prohibits California from approving a request for state-funded or state-sponsored travel to such a state. The travel prohibition applies to state agencies, departments, boards, authorities, commissions, including an agency, department, board, authority, commission of the University of California, the Board of Regents, the University of California, and the California State University. So that's how they got all the sports teams in there. So there's no sports teams attached to any university system in California. They get to participate, and California can automatically ban any funded travel, which means if you're part of any sort of California university, which is basically the CSU system and the entire UC system, then effectively you can't go. I mean, I guess officially, if every single player paid their own ticket and all of the people used their own money, they could travel, but probably wouldn't work out anyways. So that's the idea, is you can't ban a person from traveling. What we're saying is our government wants nothing to do with traveling to that place. And to the extent that we can, we're not going to allow our people to go. Now, we can't stop them. But
I think what's curious about it also is that California seems like it's less in the majority, albeit more progressive with our ideas. But man, that just thinking of kind of California and any kind of just what woke represents, boy, that's I think it's easier to kind of accept something like that when you haven't seen how it might affect like a family on a personal scale. And maybe that's too specific for you guys to really understand. It's just I don't think you really start to question it until you're faced with the question of like, do I believe in, traditional values and and what does it mean that, that won't be there anymore? And it's everyone's, personal decision to decide. But, if I see that many, I mean, I think there's a lot of states that are, kind of more openly saying that's not what they want. And I think it's something to be considered, because it does change, I mean, a lot about, what a lot of people think about just traditional values, straight up.
Good point. Regardless, these are facts of how we feel about it. Daniel, I can't connect you. You need to connect your mic cam before I can add you to the stream. But this is the point we wanted to show, is that for the first time ever, we can now have the votes to legally secede. Whether people think that's a good idea or not, we have been saying for years that you only need a simple majority of Congress or the states, consent to the states to leave. Erwin Chemerinsky is a constitutional scholar based here in California. He was the dean of the UC Irvine School of Law and the dean of the UC Berkeley School of Law. And he said, under his understanding of the Constitution, a simple majority consent to the states would qualify. Well, we only need 25 states to do that, because California would be the 26th state. That's a simple majority. We have 23. We only need 25. 23 states are now controlled by Republicans. Republicans generally don't like us. If that's not good enough, 23 states, California's basically slapped in the face and said, we look down on you. When we combine that, it's 87%. I mean, it's almost 90% of all the states California said, go screw yourself, are totally controlled by Republicans. Let me write that down so everybody really gets that. Almost 90% of the states CA had said, we hate your values, are also controlled completely by Republicans. What does that say to you guys?
And
there's clearly a connection.
Also, don't forget, with the midterms, other than Georgia, with the midterms wrapped up, we can now see that 26 states out of the 50 have a Republican governor now.
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
And sure, maybe the governor himself or herself is not the be-all, end-all on that decision, but they're the person who has the ultimate control for the federal government of that state, that territory. And so their standpoint, their view, their say is going to hold some serious weight with legislators there. So just because it's kind of a 50-50, like maybe say Georgia, if it's Republican governor, like the Georgia Republican governor just got reelected, then it wouldn't really matter so much that there's some blue in there, because the power working for the federal government to run this entity known as Georgia, Republican, they say, yeah, I want my people to vote yes, like California or kick California out. That is going to carry some weight. Whether it makes it happen like that, who's to say? We'll cross that fiery bridge when we get there.
Yeah, I was getting some lag out of his.
Yeah. So let me show you this to back up what Jason was saying. Jason, we had a little bit of lag there. You may want to repeat it, but let me show people this to back up what you're saying. So this is the 2022 United States gubernatorial elections. And so you can see there's here's the party, Republican, Democrat, seats before, seats after. So Republicans have 26 seats to Democrats 24. So there it is. There's 26 Republican governorships.
do you feel like, I mean, I think that the reasons Republicans even have that tiny amount of, more seats was really kind of, I think it was a direct response, though, to what they had seen out of this Biden administration. I mean, I'm not sure people would necessarily hold the same values if they hadn't watched things that they knew were deliberately just wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I do not think that the DNC or Biden or his team have helped themselves at all by, say, going on the campaign trail and saying $1,400 for checks for everyone every month for the foreseeable future to make sure that everyone is okay. Oh, wait, no, never mind. We're not going to do that because we're going to send bazillions of dollars overseas while our people are starving. Oh, by the way, I campaigned calling that Trump's racist border wall just that, and now I'm going to be the one to finish. Definitely not Trump's, definitely not racist border wall.
Yeah.
Like, really, they are only shooting themselves in the feet left and right.
Yeah, wow. I don't know what to say about that.
All right.
I will show you this. Here is, let me show you guys this, make sure this comes in correctly. No, oops, present, share screen. Here we go, window, document, Word. Here we go. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that, but that is, so this is Republican-controlled governor states at the bottom with the blue and red map, this map here. So all the red is a Republican-controlled governor. And then the map above is where the Republicans have total control. There's not a complete match, although there is a fair amount of overlap. The point for me was this. We've managed to piss off 23 states in America. And they're pretty much all right next to each other. So if you are one of those red squares with the black box, you're a Republican state. We have managed to at least not piss off enough. But if you're red, we probably pissed you off. And if you're purple, and even though you have some Democrats there, I bet if you went to South Carolina and Tennessee and Nebraska and Louisiana and talked about transgender story time, they may not have a great reaction. And so even if they didn't have a complete Republican trifecta government, I think they're not for California values. So the way I look at this is that we have 23 Republican trifecta states, and then we have an additional 4 states that also don't like us because we insulted them, which is a total of 27. 3 of those states haven't signed on to the travel ban. And if they do, I'm sure that would push them. The whole point is these are people who are likely to be upset at California and could vote us out. Everything you see in red and purple is a candidate for voting us out. And there's 23 red and 4 purple. And I would say whether you're a Republican trifecta state or you've been a travel ban state, you're probably in the category of you don't like California. And if we only need half, we're looking at 23 Republican-controlled states plus 4 travel ban states, not totally Republican-controlled, equals 27 states that have a reason to not like California. Only need 25, actually 24. That's the big takeaway.
Yeah, and now my video seems to be frozen, but my audio still works, right?
Oh yeah, we can hear you clear. Talk.
Okay. So I think it's also important when looking at that map to notice the entirety of the Pacific coast. The whole thing. Not Republican dominated, not Republican controlled, not, super duper pro America, right? I know we're about Calexit, but one of the things that I talk about when talking Calexit is what future and independent California could potentially have, and forming the nation of Pacifica out of the newly reestablished whatever countries of Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, California, possibly even Alaska, right? Now, they do have a lot of Republican. They also do have a lot of Dem. And California, we've got Republican too. Like there's Republicans and Dems everywhere. And, Alaska, it could be debated, but there is something to be said for the potential of if could, as Pacific nation people, all be just a little bit more right. I'm not saying you have to be like, oh, yeah, I love that person who's dropping the N bomb every 2 seconds. But for the people who aren't like that, right? Just because they see differently from you or want something slightly different from you, doesn't mean you have to vilify each other. And that would mean if we're able to do that, we could bring Alaska to be one of the largest nations in the world. It would be the absolute biggest powerhouse as far as resource production. Pick a resource, any resource will do. We will be number one in the world.
Let me hop on real quick because I have to take off right now. I have a ride somewhere. First off, thanks for having me again, Mark. I can't.
Anytime, brother.
I can't see his name. I thought it was Trevor, right? Or some. But
Jason.
Jason. Yeah. Well, I appreciate just the conversation and whatnot. But last time we spoke, Mark had mentioned just what it would mean for Californians to be able to assemble in Sacramento. And I wanted to bring that up again because when look, there's a part of me that can see myself in Texas firing guns into the sky because I just like that sense of America. Don't get me wrong, but also I think I have a lot of pride, perhaps wrongly so, for being Californian and just what we represent as a state. I think California, we're pretty cutting edge. I really believe that. And so with that, when I think of, the potential for just California, and if we, we're looking out for ourselves, I think there's a lot of potential in it. And it's definitely something, very worth considering. And I'd love to hear more opinions about it, honestly, because I think straight up, I think we could do extremely well for ourselves. I think California has a lot of resources and a lot of just strong people. But like I said, I have to take off. But thanks for having me again, and I hope to see you next week.
Anytime. We love having you come on. Please tell everybody we want to have conversations and we don't bite.
All right. Yes, sounds good.
Yeah, it's good to meet you, and it's good to have you here. And I hope you come back next week, and I will be looking forward to it.
Awesome. All righty. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Well, we were gonna do a little bit of a review of the documentary. Do you want to do that?
Totally.
Okay. I bite. Well, most of us don't bite, but Yushuan bites. Okay, fair enough. That's your right to do that. Okay, let's do this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a review of the Calexit documentary by Warner Brothers and Awfully Nice Production Company. The documentary finished this week. This week was the final episode of the documentary, and Calexit's official response. Second. Make sure we say this first. Our official response is great storytelling. You got the history right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Want to say our official response from the documentary by Warner Brothers Music and Awfully Nice Production Company was they did a great job with the storytelling. They did a great job of getting the history right. Want to make sure we said that first. We do have some critiques of some of the facts presented, but wanted to make sure that overall we thought vindicated. This actually told the story correctly, largely with the personalities and the drama and the back and forth set up right. Let me do a share screen real quick for 1 second here. So this is, let me show you here. Okay, do a share screen. Here you go. This is at the Awfully Nice Production Company. The Last Resort, an interval presents series overview. What if California seceded from the United States? If it did, what would happen? Would it usher in a new era of peace and prosperity or plunge the U.S. into a new civil war? This is The Last Resort, a new documentary podcast following the rise, fall, and rebirth of Calexit. It's the story of a dream for a new progressive utopia on the West Coast. It's about the fight for America's future. It's also the tale of two friends who started on the political fringe and ended up in the middle of a still unfolding global criminal conspiracy involving the FBI and Russian intelligence, narrated by Shuteska. The episodes are 1 through 8, The Tipping Point, The Ballad of Marcus and Lewis, After the Gold Rush, The Great State of Jefferson, The Land of Flowing Water, The Civil War, People of the Sun, and Alcatraz. Press and highlights. Here's a little press release they released talking about the documentary. All 8 parts are out. There is the moderator. He did a great job. Really like his voice. And so we wanted to do a review, roughly, thoughts and feelings about the Calexit documentary by Warner Brothers Music and Awfully Nice Production Company now that it's done. Jason, let me go to you.
Yeah.
So what did you think of the documentary? What were your thoughts?
Well, like you said, pleased with the level of the coverage and the obvious care and concern that they put into making sure that they got things correct factually. Especially nowadays, right? Not everyone is concerned with that. Not all media outlets are like, oh yes, first and foremost, we have to do our due diligence, right?
Right.
It seems like in America, media has got very lazy. And I'm pretty sure I've met Shuteska once before up in Marin. And my opinion of that, he's a decent dude. Like, just as human beings go, right? When you meet someone, you can usually tell if they're like shady or not. And he struck me as definitely like kind of the person that we would normally go and approach and be like, hey man, have you ever thought about joining this? Now they did cover the history, which was very important for us because there's a lot of false narrative coming from people who weren't even there, weren't even involved, right? And they're like, no, it was bought and paid for by Vladimir Putin, and I can guarantee it because my name is Rachel Maddow. Stuff like that. And so having this high level of media source that also did its due diligence and having them just lay out the history, it was good because now it's there on record and it's not just us saying it. Yes, we know the history. We lived it. But when we're the ones saying it, people will always kind of, well, yeah, but like, that's kind of like the police when they investigate themselves and find that they did nothing wrong, even though they got yet another unarmed black man in the back.
Yeah.
So like, I am very appreciative for it. I am very grateful. I, however, do have a little bit of a problem, and that's that, it's there in their description. The past, right? The founding, the fall, and the rebirth of Calexit. They did not go into the rebirth of Calexit. And you were very clear with me, Marcus, and I trust you wholeheartedly. I don't doubt you for a moment when you told me that you mentioned me a lot more than once and talked about, my position and what we've been working on and like how long I've been involved. They did not include one single mention of me. And my foster mom has been listening in, trying to hear about when I'm going to come up in the story. And we're all a bit ass out, pardon the phrase, because we were hoping to hear this part of the rebirth and what to expect, what to look for the future. And they really kind of missed it. They stopped before getting to that. And so I would strongly suggest that they do a follow-up, either a full series like this one or a mini series, going into just the current to future of Calexit. And I will gladly do interviews and sit and like what you did with them, Marcus. I will do that. I'm pretty sure as the CEO, I can, pull a string with Rabbi Axelman, our vice president, right? So they will have all three of the sitting heads of the thing interviewed and giving, right? So it would be great for them. There's like no reason not to do it. And so then I just wonder even more, why did they not include one single mention about me, about the interim presidency, and then the fact that you, Marcus, are the one who was like, I want you to be the CEO. I want you to be the head. Give me a break. I need a little time from being the head, please. And, in our back and forth exchange of, brother, I can't do this without you. Yeah, but brother, I couldn't do it without you. Like, they missed kind of a lot of really awesome stuff. And I don't think it was a nefarious reason that, prevented it from making it in. I think maybe they decided on 8 episodes and, the theme of each episode and ran out of time. That's pretty common when making podcasts, videos, documentary stuff, right? So I'm not like angry. I'm a little bit put out. I was kind of looking forward to hearing, a documentary providing, a historic record of, yes, this man, Jason Wright, is the current head and running this thing, and here's where they're working towards. So again, Shateska, Warner Brothers, everyone, I will go ahead and do these interviews. I'm pretty sure I can get Rabbi Axelman to at least do one. I'm pretty sure Marcus will go ahead and do some follow-up if you ask nicely. We can get all sorts of people. We've got contacts, and I was the head of international outreach for Calexit for years. You want to talk to international sources about Calexit? I can probably find a few people or several people for you to interview. You've got some golden content that you kind of missed. You swept the metal detector a little too quickly over that spot. There's gold right down in there. All you got to do is that little bit of dig. So, other than that, I would also like to point out that I really like Shuteska's music. The intro song that he does, little outros, how they seemed to be like different songs he was using here and there, but it's all his music. This man is gifted at many things, including music. He's an artist. He is a creative type of person, right? And like, I feel like a kindred spirit in that sense. Politics, writing, activism, humanitarianism, art. When you excel at these things, you find other people who are like that, and you just kind of like, I don't know, you feel like maybe we're not blood relative family, but we're family to each other. We are kin. And so, really, Shuteska, if you hear this, if your producers are hearing this, producers, pass it on to Shuteska, please. Y'all want some more golden content? Just ask. We will all put our heads together, come together, and make it happen. Because that's one of the most important parts. Getting the history finally laid out and, concrete, that was important too. But what people can look forward to for now, as well as in the future, that is huge. And that's like really of the utmost importance. Our history doesn't even matter as much as the future. Yes, the history is important, but the future is the thing we're working towards. The now is the point we're living in. The future is the point our children and our children's children will be living in. Nothing's more important than the kids. So, again, right? So again, come, send a message, give a call. Marcus has my everything, my contact everything, right? Get in touch. We will make this happen.
He doesn't even know about. What?
Well.
Oh.
Hi, Marcus.
Hi.
But yeah, all of that being said, I would like to point out a few things. One is this economic expert, right? He's a professor of economics in one of these episodes that they did.
Yeah.
And what we're dealing with is nation building, international law, local to federal law, right? This is all law stuff. And they brought in a professor of economics and called him an expert in this field and asked him these questions about law. And what he even answered with was his own personal opinion, which was based on, obviously, limited understanding. I mean, sure, the guy probably understands a lot more about economics than even I do. But the question was not economics. It was law. There are there's a small handful of people in the world who are recognized internationally as experts on the subject of self-determination and the legal pursuit of that. And Marcus and I are each one of those. You couldn't be bothered to get one of these two experts labeled as an expert on this, right? Like, it's a little befuddling to me. You did all this due diligence, all this research. You did such an amazing job. And then there are these couple of little things, and like, you know, personal opinion does not belong in the law. The law doesn't care about your feelings. The law doesn't care about anything. It's a bunch of words on paper. And so you have to really understand those words and not listen to someone's feeling. I've got tons of feeling when it comes to Calexit and self-determination. But when it comes to talking as an expert on the legality of this, there can't be emotion, and I remove the emotion. It's all like, you know, Ben Stein reading off statistics or something. First you do step 1, then you do step 2. No, you cannot win my money because I got none. But, you know, you had Marcus interviewing with you regularly, left and right. You had like his undivided attention anytime you called. There were times I wanted to get in touch with him and I had to wait because he was working with you. And that was very important. And that's also something I wanted him to do. So I didn't mind waiting. But if you needed an expert in self-determination law and the international treaty that this is all under, well, then you should have let Marcus know, and either he could have answered it for you, or he could have maybe even told you, hey, that guy I keep bringing up who's the now current head of the whole thing is the guy that you need to talk to about that. All you have to do was ask. Ask the actual expert on the question at hand. Not an expert on something else, the expert on this topic. And, you know, there are some other people who are at this level of understanding with the United Nations Entrance Charter and the rule of law in the United States of America and how it supersedes any and all, even federal laws, how it takes precedent over any and all code and legislation in the United States of America. So says the United States of America, right? It's not the UN saying, hey, US, you have to accept our authority. It's the US saying, hey, we have our authority, but we recognize that we also, as part of the international community, have to answer to the international community too. And the US is part of the UN, which means they had to sign that entrance charter, that treaty. Treaties and trade deals, first and foremost. Even over the sacred founding documents. I mean, it's not really that hard to explain how this takes precedence. It's not really that hard to explain what self-determination is, right? We could do it all in one episode, rip that Band-Aid off, and get everyone who ever hears this to be on that same level, that same page of understanding about the legal right. The inalienable is what they call it. The fundamental and inalienable right to self-determination. So again, you want it, we got it, come and get it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, and seeing the whole water issue thing. Thank you, because I want to point that out. I don't want you to have to stand up for yourself on that one. As your boss, I
Was
am
I
going to
crazy?
step out there.
Was I
No,
crazy in saying that we could we 80% of the water goes to crops, that 80% we export?
Yeah.
Is that a fact, or am I just making that up?
that is a fact that can be looked up on the California Government Department of Agriculture's website.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, literally a matter of Googleable public knowledge. Not only that, but like everyone forgets about Nestle Co. and the fact that they've been operating without a permit for longer than I have been alive. I am 36 years old. I'll be 37 in March. They have been illegally bottling California's groundwater and running our aquifers dry, and then selling us back our water that we as taxpayers have already paid for. And they're selling it back to us for way more per bottle than we actually even paid for it per year. So they're not just making profit, they are making grossly exorbitant, disgusting profit margin off of illegal action. And because it's America that we're still under right now, there's not really a whole lot we can do, because people are being corporate sellouts and they're swearing their allegiance to the almighty American dollar. If we were independent, we could kick out Nestle and our aquifers would start to rebalance. Not only that, but as Marcus had pointed out at one point during one of our meetings, there is a spot up on the northern coast of California where the amount of water that they get annually, the amount of water that, like,
Yeah.
you need irrigation for San Joaquin Valley, you could easily get it from there. Is it going to require some infrastructure investment and, like a water pipeline project or something? Sure, totally. But that's jobs you're creating. And if you do it right, that infrastructure stays around a long while, and you can put those jobs, okay, great, we've finished the water pipeline. Hey, we still got dams that, hydroelectric power plants that are, in varying states of disrepair. Some are totally broken and just need to be destroyed completely anyway, right? And you can take these people who now have this experience with this sort of thing and put them over there. And guess what? They're still working, still making money, still feeding the economy, still feeding their families, right? It's a win-win-win for everybody. California doesn't have a water problem. We have a legislative sellout problem. We have an independence problem. Our independence can actually lead to us being able to fix these broken things. But if we remain sitting on our hands while, having our head stepped on by the American federal boot, we will only continue to experience what we have been experiencing this whole time. Nothing is going to change unless it just gets worse. Yeah, and Yeshuan, you bring up an amazing point. There is knowledge and technology to create man-made aquifer systems for water storage and collection. It's not rocket science. It's kind of rock science. But it's not the most complicated thing in the world. It's not something that's going to cost an entire country's GDP for 3 years in order to do it. it's relatively straightforward, relatively quick to achieve. And then, like, because it takes a long time for it to fill, that's why starting it now is so important. If we wait 20 years to start it, that thing won't be filled for a long, long time. If we start it now, by the time that thing's done, we might have our independence. And then 20 years of being independent, and we're like, hey, do you remember back in the day when we were still under America and there was like all this water shortage stuff and people were like scared about food shortages because water was so low and forest fires were running rampant and I mean, really. And not just water, but like pick an issue, any issue. Indigenous rights. Under the American federal boot, that ain't getting solved. That ain't getting touched. Under the American federal boot sellouts, that is not going to happen ever. In independent California that only answers to itself and makes its own decisions, however, being that most California voters do seem to be fairly reasonable and don't seem to really hate indigenous people, right? Sure, there will be people filled with hate from every demographic, but by and large, the California voters would most likely start to actually get on board with doing some things like, I don't know, say returning sacred land sites, helping to push and vote for so that it really actually passes, certain kind of legislative measures that would allow for, say, indigenous nations and communities to do what it is that they used to do before that, when white man came along and said, you have to do things our way and we don't want you touching the abalone or fishing in these rivers or streams or touching those animals. You can't have the Thule elk. We're just going to cull off the extra, herd. And that was Point Reyes, Marin County. Marin County had a bunch of people who were going out there as activists saying, hey, take care of these elk. They are endemic to California. They are native to California. You can't just commit a genocide on them. I thought we learned about this from our freaking past. And the response was, rather than send some of the Thule elk up to the Pomo, who used to have this elk as their food source, who have been requesting the return of some of these elk, at least some of these elk, for the use for their cultural food source, right? The answer from the government's no, we're just going to cull them. And there were a lot of non-indigenous people who are very wealthy who were very angry at that. One, because they care about animals, but two, they also care about, indigenous rights, native issues. And that was a double stab. Not only are you killing off the native animal, but deciding actively not to do something right by the native people with this native animal. I mean, it's kind of petty. It's also kind of disgusting. It just screams of, this is an example of what I'm saying when I say, as long as we are under the American system, our indigenous brothers and sisters of California will not ever know the peace, the prosperity, the livelihoods, the cultural belonging that they want and that they really deserve and that they've been asking for And sure, maybe not every tribe wants it, because there are some that are federally recognized and they get lots of money from being federally recognized and getting to have a casino or something. And to each their own. People should make their decisions, and if a tribe's decision is that I'm not gonna, that's not even for me to have an opinion on, right? But there are many indigenous communities in California who are not federally recognized, who are not given any sort of extra anything. In fact, are even more subjugated in varying different aspects, varying different ways than they were really before, except for, when the genocidal maniacs were going through California. So really, pick an issue, any issue. World hunger, right? That's one of my favorites. Well, independent California fixes the water problems. We're producing even more food because we can. And we get to set our prices. So that food actually gets out there on the world market. And guess what? Maybe it doesn't solve world hunger single-handedly, but people will have something to eat, have nourishment, have sustenance. They will survive at least a bit longer until the rest of the world can also get with the program. And the whole world looks to California as a leader on everything, especially like this, social type stuff. Green energy, climate change, recognition of, ARTSOC and whatnot. Like California leads the way, and the world recognizes it and says, okay, California, you lead the way. We're looking to you. And what you do, we're going to see how well it works. And if it's working, boom, we're there. We're with you. We're on it. So really, we wouldn't solve it by ourselves, world hunger, but it would drive the rest of the world to do the same thing that we do. Well, I understand I might be able to charge $100 for an avocado if everyone in the world who grows avocados all agrees to charge $100 per avocado. But that's quite ridiculous, and it also means no one's selling any avocados. All the avocados are going to go rotten and go unbought. You set it at a reasonable price, right? We set it at a reasonable price so that it can get out there, because selling it is going to make you money a lot more than letting it go to waste. And then when they see the benefits that we reap from that, the rest of the world will more than likely start to get on board with that program. And then world hunger, which is a manufactured crisis, doesn't have to be a thing. There is more than enough food throughout the entire planet. It's the pricing, the markets, the dispensation. That's the thing that's making world hunger happen. And we can all combat that together, and then it'll be solved. You want to solve world hunger? Calexit now. It's step one.
Just to back up some of the things Jason's saying, we've been saying. Here you go. 70% of the water comes from the north. 75% of the water is used by farms and population centers, mostly by farms. California official government, 80% of all water goes to farms. Looking directly at the Colorado River, 80% of the Colorado River goes to farms, not people. Only 1/3 of all of LA's water comes from the Colorado River. This is from the Public Policy Institute of California. None of these facts were mentioned in the documentary for whatever reason. Just couldn't be mentioned. So my point was that if you secede, we have bargaining power because America relies on our crops. 90% of their fruits and vegetables come from California. 80% is of our water goes to that alone. We don't eat that much fruits and vegetables, so we could say, hey, you need to keep giving us water. And if America said, no, we're not going to, then we simply cut off their food supply. I didn't say that to be mean, but I said that to say we have negotiation power. Somehow that was changed into California has no water issue at all. So I know I didn't say that. There were 4 facts that I thought were 3 facts that I thought were off, and 1 they just didn't cover, which maybe they ran out of time, so I'm not so sure. So the first one was by Stephen Marsh, who's one of their experts. He's a Canadian man with an English literature degree, and he was talking about American federal policy. So it's a Canadian with a degree in English talking about American government systems. Get that? And we said that you could get your Social Security check even if California seceded, as long as you didn't renounce your American citizenship, which has been the law since the creation of Social Security for basically 70 years. Stephen Marsh said that's wrong. He was completely wrong. And it's kind of shocking because Social Security law has been around for at least 7 decades. How did you get that wrong? It takes 30 seconds online to find that. Secondly, we were said that our understanding of water in California and that there's no drought or issue if California secedes is, quote, nuts. That's from John Christensen. John Christensen also has a background in fine arts and writes a kind of journal for the University of California, Los Angeles called Boom. He does not have a degree in water infrastructure, engineering, or economics, to the best of my knowledge. Also, we never said California doesn't have a water issue. We said if California left, we don't have a water issue because what they were saying in the documentary was if California left, America would cut off the Colorado River and then we'd be screwed. And my point was you could go ahead and cut off the Colorado River. We'll just not grow those crops. And then America won't have that food. But we would still have plenty of water without the Colorado River to give all of our cities and all of our people all the water they needed and grow all the crops that we needed to feed ourselves easily. Somehow all of that was cut and none of it mentioned. And none of these facts, like the Colorado River is going away, it only supplies the minority of the water to Los Angeles. The people who run it have said it's no longer a reliable source of water. All of that was not mentioned at all. The fact that the majority of water goes to agriculture, the fact that majority of our agriculture is exported, none of that was mentioned at all. And then it was just, oh, you guys are wrong on water. Okay, well, a lot of facts not mentioned at all. Don't take my word for it. Go watch that episode. It's called The Land of Flowing Water. See if they mention the facts. If I'm wrong, call me out, but they don't mention them at all. And then they just say, well, these guys said there's no water issue in California, period. That we've never said that. Total lie. The third thing was by Casey Michel. He said that Russian interference in promoting the Calexit tweet the night Donald Trump was elected, the night that we got really big, was much by Russia. The word he used was much, meaning majority, most, dominant side. That's a total lie. So you can just type in Russia promoted the Calexit tweet. There's a BBC article, comes up in 30 seconds, but you actually have to read the article. And what it says was 80% of the tweets about Calexit came from regular Californians. 20%, 1/5, a minority, 1/5, a minority, 1/5, total minority was from Russia. That's what the official article says. 1/5 is a minority. It's not much. It's not the majority. So Casey Michel outright lied. And I already told the documentary crew that statistic. Because they go, what about Russia interference? And they go, that comes from one article. It's from the BBC. You have to read past the page fold down to the second half of the page. And then they will show you that it's 80% organic and 20% Russian. which does not match the headline of that BBC article, which says Russia interfered. That kind of leads people to think it's the majority, which is what Casey Michelle said. That is not what the article says. It's no more than 1/5. 4/5 was regular old Californians. Couldn't mention that and said the exact opposite of what the facts say. So straight up lie by Casey Michelle. Not checked. And somehow my information that, it's 80-20 was somehow not included in the documentary, although I literally told them that and emailed the references. Somehow all of that was lost. I don't know how. Then the last thing was they didn't provide bad information. They just didn't really give an answer. So if you watch the last episode of the documentary, they go, why would Marcus stay loyal to Lewis for so long? And that was kind of an open question. I gave them the answer. They printed none of it. I said, none of us were ready for prime time when we got started. Lewis was there. 6 of us were there. Lewis was the only person with the gall to run for public office. Lewis asked other people to run for office. I demurred. Other people demurred. Theo Slater was there. He was, nope, not going to run for office now. Maybe in the future. Nobody was going to do it. Lewis was at nobody. Hell no. Don't ask me. He was the only one that ran. Because he ran, we got 2 LA Times articles. Because we had those 2 LA Times articles, we got statewide news coverage. Because we had statewide news coverage, we had saturation in California. So the California media knew about us. Because we went to the Dialogue of Nations, we were able to get American news coverage. We had tried to get the New York Times and people outside of California to cover us because we were getting California news stations to cover us all over. And we said, maybe New York, Chicago, you can cover us just because it's interesting. They would never respond to us. So when Lewis went to the Dialogue of Nations, we got in European news, and within 24 hours, major American news started covering us. And I've always said, how come we tried to reach out to major American news for a year, 2 years, we got absolutely nothing. Within 24 hours, all of the sudden, American news starts covering us after European news covers us. So it's just a fluke, chance, coincidence. We've been trying to get American news to cover us. They can't even spit in our direction if we were on fire. But within hours of Europe covering us, suddenly they're all over it. If we did not have that American news coverage from the Dialogue of Nations, we wouldn't have been known across America. Secondly, the embassy. People going, wow, embassy in Moscow. Yeah, well, the movement was a joke until that happened. And then after the embassy, which was a mock embassy and not real, and we said that happened, you started seeing people like, I think it was CBS, ABC, or NBC. One of those 3 major networks said, California has achieved international recognition. Once that was on the stage, we started having the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations, a lot of heavy hitters talking about California independence, but not before that NBC, CBS, or ABC article came out saying, looks like they've achieved international recognition. So my point is that everybody's like, well, Calexit got big when Trump was elected. Wouldn't it have been great if Lewis wasn't around? You could say that, but we wouldn't be here. I know that's not what people want to hear. I get it, but it's the facts. If Lewis did not run for office, we would not have California-wide media. If Lewis did not go to the Dialogue of Nations, we would never have gotten American media. If we did not have California-wide media and American-wide media, we never would have gotten media coverage the day Trump was elected. The media companies would not have come and covered Calexit if there was no articles in California News and no articles in the New York Times before that date. As I've said many times, the media covers things that are already covered. So this idea that we didn't need to go to the Dialogue of Nations and we could have gotten no New York Times coverage, no ABC television coverage, no American news coverage, and we could have gotten no California news coverage. And yet when Trump was elected, we still would have gotten as big is a ridiculous concept based upon nothing. That is a garbage understanding. You do not get massive amount of media because you have no media. Not how it works. We had media in California, had media in America. That meant we were known across California and America to media companies already. Donald Trump gets elected. We get a lot of media because they're already familiar with us. They can look us up, see that we're good guests. Thirdly, they would not have put the amount of time into the media coverage of us if they didn't think we were serious. They never thought we were serious until we got that embassy, because nobody ever thought we'd get international recognition, which is the key legal principle you have to obtain, and you have to show that you're even to be taken seriously. So the only reason we got global coverage and everyone in California hearing about this and America and so much media attention and so many people talking about it was because we had California media before, American media before, and we had major American media saying this is serious and these guys know what they're doing legally. All of that was in my partnership or under my direction of Lewis. And so people want to say, why was Marcus loyal to Lewis for so long? Because we needed the California media, we needed the American media, and we needed to be taken seriously. And without those three pieces in place, we never would have got the media that we did. I knew that. That's why I was loyal. All of that material was cut and none of it made it into the documentary. I don't know why, but I have told many people this story. It's the same story I always tell. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear, we don't need Lewis and we could have done this all without him. I wish that were true. And maybe if we could travel back in time, and maybe if I had more courage at the time, and maybe if we knew what the future had, we would have pushed ourselves harder. That's possible. But that's not what happened. The movement does not belong to Lewis. The movement does not belong to me. It doesn't belong to Jason. It belongs to no one. If you're a Californian, all you have to do is believe this is a good idea for us. It's yours. Nobody owns this concept. It's yours. You're a Californian. But I just wanted to get the history correct. So,
well, let me just butt in real quick, just for legal purposes, to say that Calexit branding is actually owned by myself and Marcus. Same with Yes California organization is actually registered to Marcus, not to Lewis, even though he keeps filing false claims that he owns it. And it was looked up by John Drake. John found that Yes California is actually belonging to Marcus, and the Calexit LLC, right, belongs to me. And, you know, at the same time, Marcus is absolutely correct. This is not my movement. It's not Marcus's movement. This is our movement as Californians. And that's why it's imperative that everyone get on board, everyone get involved. We can only do this together. One person standing up and saying, I claim the right to self-determination, does not legally stand. We as a people must stand together and identify ourselves as a unique, individual, separate people from those outside of our borders. Doesn't mean we hate them. We just acknowledge that we are not Americans, we are Californians. America is America, and it's filled with Americans, and that's fine. But this is California, and Californians are in California, and Californians should have the right to choose for California, and not have someone 3,000 miles away who's possibly never even stepped foot here deciding what it is we can and can't do, what we can and can't think and say. And then we get the international support, and we can approach the UN if, the Republicans really don't want to go the route of voting us off the island. I mean, really, Republican folk. And I mentioned this to, I've got friends from all walks of life, all around the world. My friends Dee Dee and Sunny, who live in one of the southern states, who vote Republican, right? And they're not bad people. I mean, like, this woman and her husband, they're friends of mine, and I don't really, have anything to do with horrible people. So these folks, right, I tell them that this is the possibility. Your team now has the power. If you really feel like California is California, if you really feel like Californians and our way of being and thinking and legislating is like grossly overstepping and affecting you in your land, in your state, your county, your city, your town, right? If you feel like California is detrimental to you, then, and you live in one of these red states, then write to every single elected official of every level until no one wants to hear another word about it because they are so sick of hearing about how we just need to kick California out of the union. Convince your elected officials of how much you want California gone from the union. With that, with their constituents mandating, demanding, they have no choice unless they're going to just not do their job and not fulfill the oath to office, right? Then really they have no choice other than to do what you are demanding, which is to get everyone together who's got the authority to do this vote and make that vote happen. And chances are it would turn out with, the majority would say, yeah, California, go ahead and be your own country. Go ahead, do it, go for it, knock yourselves out, enjoy life. And, we'll still be next door neighbors. We'll still have to do trade and transportation and, shared airspace, right? Like, it's not like a divorce of our political identity and our national unity from one another is going to just instantly make us like, I don't know, Trump versus Kim Jong-un, right? It's not going to be like an immediate super feud that almost sparks off World War III. Partly because Californians, by and large, are much more reasonable than that. But also because we will still be, it's not like the land can just like pack up suitcases and grow legs and arms and walk off somewhere to another part of the planet. It's still going to be where it is now. And for everyone who says that like you're going to slide off into the ocean, a little science fact is that tectonic plates, right? We know these are a thing, and they know it's a thing because they're like using that as their reasoning for it's going to slide off into the ocean. Well, just know that the Pacific plate, which is what California is on, not the North American plate, which is what America is on. California is on a different tectonic plate from the rest of North America, and it's the Pacific plate, and it doesn't go outwards towards Hawaii. It actually goes over the other way towards Washington, D.C. It's pushing upward and inward. It's not going to fall off into the ocean. It's going to grow bigger. But, you can go ahead and hope that we slide off into the ocean if that's your thing. I don't really like being hated, but I understand that we are vilified. We are hated by a lot of people, not everyone. And like I said, my friends Dee Dee and her husband Sonny, they actually have, at least Dee Dee recently even said that she agrees with it. She doesn't hate California, and she doesn't really want to be influenced by California either, because, if she wanted California values, she would move here to California. What she wants, what lines up with her choice, her decision, her right to pursue what she wants, right? That's freedom. It means that she doesn't have to move to California and be subject to it if that's not what she wants. And it's clear that's not what she wants. But she also has that same spirit of, I recognize most Californians do not want what I want and what people who vote like me want. They don't feel the same things. We are very different. And, for the sake of everyone, for the red voters' sake to not be overburdened by us, and for the, California's sake to, not have our throat crushed by a federal boot called the United States of America. Like, this is in everyone's best interest. Also, it makes a civil war, a second civil war, a lot less likely. Because that's a lot of resource and manpower. Roughly 12% of America's entire population are Californians. So for all of you who hate Californians because we are Californians, just remember you are actively hating 12%, not 0.001% of America. No. You are actively hating the largest single demographic chunk, statewide or states out of the entire country. We have 12% of all of Americans, California. We've also got, like Marcus said, we're the ones who grow most of the food, not the bread basket. I lived in Nebraska. I lived out in the corn in Beatrice, Nebraska, in Gage County. And, I met tons of very friendly people there. Tons of Republicans who were very friendly with me, but made it, some made it very clear.
Jason? We're waiting for Jason to reconnect. Give it a second. Jason? All right, we'll give Jason another minute, see if he can reconnect. We were covering these issues. So we liked the documentary. It was pretty good. There was a couple facts we'd like to have better handled, I should say. We're going to give Jason 2 more minutes to come in, and then we will call it the end of the show. So, Jason, are you there? Can you come on? Okay. I'm just going to give him some time to see if he can come on the show. Okay, I guess not. We'll wrap up the show there. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll have more analysis from Jason soon. Deeply appreciated. We liked the documentary. There was just a couple facts we wanted to cover. And please, the most important thing now is everybody who wants the Calexit needs to know this. All the Republicans in the USA and all the Calexit supporters in America. And it is this thing right here. Whether you like Calexit, whether you don't, whether you like Yes California or you don't, whether you don't like me or do, this is the map that needs to get out to everybody in California who likes Calexit and everybody in America who's a Republican. 23 states are Republican trifectas. 23 states California is personally offended. 4 additional states have been banned by travel but don't have a Republican trifecta. So when you add all the states that are Republican trifectas who definitely don't like California values, and you add all the states that have been travel banned from California because they don't share California values and that definitely upset them, it's 27 states. More than half don't like California, hate our values. And 87%, almost 90% of all Republican trifecta states are also states California's banned. So we need to focus on the states that California's banned and that are Republican trifectas, and then reach out to other states too. But all these states in red and purple, that is our target, 27 states. They can now vote us off the island. They have enough to have a majority vote to do that. And that's the big idea. Jason, are you there? Jason?
Hey, sorry about that. I had a little connection issue. It's been
good.
snowing
5
off
more
and on
minutes and then
recently up here.
5 more minutes and then I got to go. So take us out.
Okay. I'm not sure what the last thing that was heard was.
It was the middle of a speech about, so if you want to Calexit, I'm sorry, it was kind of a proselytizing speech. I'm not sure if there's an exact fact point to refer you back to.
Okay, well, I was basically just trying to make the point that there are people across the political spectrum throughout all of America who see what we're getting at, hear what we're saying, and can agree with it, don't find it unreasonable, and even though they're not Californians, they want us to go. They hope that we go. And like, Republican friends of mine, they usually even wish us luck. Hey, best of luck with that. I really hope you guys do it. 1, because we don't want your influence. 2, because you're right. We shouldn't have to live under your laws. You shouldn't have to live under our laws. You obviously don't like our laws. We obviously don't like your laws. They see it. They get it. And these are people who are Republican even. Say what you will about Republicans are bad, evil, unreasonable, whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, no. People are people. Individuals can usually come to reason. The Republican National Party, maybe not. But if the individuals out there in the red-controlled states who want us to leave really start pushing hard on their elected officials and saying, we need this to happen. We need you to get with the program, get this vote to happen so that we can vote California out to let them leave the union so that it's not a messy thing. It's not there's no war, right? And none of us have to be subject to California's commie policies anymore, right? Well, keep on pushing it until your elected officials deliver that. And we'll be gone. You won't have to be subject to California commie policy any longer. And Californians, hey, we won't have to be subject to corporate sellouts who care not for the people and only pursue their personal profits and portfolio, stock portfolio buildups. Like, we won't have to put up with that crap anymore. Californians, if you want Calexit to happen, be reasonable, be polite, be cordial with any and every Republican friend and family member that you have, and explain this to them in a friendly manner, in, kind of the way I just did. Hey, we're all agreeing that we need to agree to disagree and just go our separate ways. So the next step is have your elected officials push for this. Californians, go and get that message out to Team Red all across the country. And I would say even help spread it around the world so that it echoes back to America. So that America cannot deny it. And then Team Red folks who are out there in America, you want us gone? That's all you have to do. And hey, don't worry. If that shouldn't go through, should that not happen, we've still got the ultimate trump card. We've got it. I know your team likes to think they're the Trump team, but we've got the trump card that trumps American federal law called the United Nations Entrance Charter. It's a treaty. And America signed it and agreed to it. which means they've already agreed we have the right to pursue self-determination, as long as it's under this law and within the guidelines, legal, peaceful. So, with that, I will bid everyone a fond farewell for now. Stay safe. If you celebrate holidays, whatever holiday it is, try to enjoy it. Not everyone enjoys the holidays. I was an orphan, so I don't always enjoy the holidays. But I know a lot of people do. So if you celebrate, whatever you celebrate, enjoy yourself. Be proud to be yourself. Be happy to be yourself. Stay safe. And just remember, we can. Sí, se puede. So really, viva todos Californios.
That's awesome. That's awesome, bro. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jason. Love you guys. And remember, this is the map to know to share with everybody. 27 states, 23 states, trifecta, 4 additional states, divided government, which means the House and Senate are Republican, but the governorship is Democrat, and they're still part of the travel ban. So we have 27 states we can be looking at to vote us off. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.